Perfect. Welcome everyone to the April 25th regular board meeting. Thank you for joining us. We will welcome tonight's meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Should anyone wish to participate in citizen comments, you may still sign up by filling out a form at the entrance of the room. Virtual attendees had the opportunity to sign up before the meeting. Are there any requests to modify today's agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. In this meeting's consent agenda, we have the minutes from the April 11th regular meeting, vouchers and payroll, the personnel report, surplus report, contracts, the 23-24 science field experience schedule, and the enrollment and financial reports. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Julie.
Then I will second Julie's motion.
We got a second by Martin. Do we have any discussion? All in favor of adopting the consent agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Kim, do we have any citizen comments? None. Okay. Special presentations. Bill?
Thank you. I mentioned earlier, we have Mr. Ron Brown here. He's going to give a bit of a tech update this evening. And he is going to be the wizard of tech tonight because he is running the Zoom and presenting. So Ron, welcome and thank you for being here.
There we go. All right. You guys can hear me okay? Thank you, board of directors. Thanks, Bill, for that introduction. I just wanted to start with a very kind of high overhead pass around technology. I haven't been in front of the board for a while to give a direct technology update. The technology department, out of the 1,000 things we do, we're going to talk about a lot of them, but kind of our core areas of support and our core areas of responsibility, and how that aligns with the strategic plan, how that aligns with our promise. In addition, just a little bit of a 3-year summary. We had the opportunity in technology with the pandemic. It lent us the emergency very quickly to stand up what we didn't have in place, which is a one-to-one program, getting devices to our students, getting devices to our families, standing that up extremely quickly, supporting that with our current staff, in addition to then purchasing and making sure when all those came back after the pandemic that we had infrastructure to support the additional devices, the additional software, the additional tools that now our teachers, our staff members, our students, and our parents were used to. Because of that remote learning. So that it probably grew us about 10 years in about 3 months, as far as our progression toward those goals that have been, in the background for Wenatchee School District for a long time. We've had some projects around one-to-one and some projects since about 2009. We were very early adopters to start moving that direction. So the pandemic was an unfortunate opportunity in the technology world to tackle those problems, but then also figure out how do we maintain, how do we keep that momentum, support that momentum, but also sustain that momentum, both fiscally and personnel wise, et cetera. So tonight is going to really be an update of, if I can get this to work, here we go. Come on, there we go. How we're supporting the promise, because as you know, our promise is to support that future ready student. And it is just the way of their world. They have to know how to use these tools. They have to know how to survive with these tools. They're going to use them in all post-secondary trainings and jobs in college and whatever life throws at them down the road. So a couple of key areas that technology supports our thriving environment, from the safety systems to the tools we use in the classroom, to the tools kids use, to the tools our parents might use, and then creating those spaces and infrastructure-wise in our schools to support the additional devices. During the pandemic or prior to the pandemic, we had around 3,000 to 4,000 devices that students used. And then we all of a sudden jumped to every staff member, every student, every parapro, every single body in our district now has a device and gets on our network and uses our tools and expects them to be functional 100% of the time and never fail. And that's a big ask for a big organization. The other piece of our tools is around engaging our parent community, engaging our families, and we have some communication tools that the technology department is also responsible for. And then a big one for us is really maintaining that equitable access for all kids, for all students, for all situations, so that no matter your background, you have the tool, you have the software, you have the hardware, you have the ability to teach with the tools, but also learn from those tools, regardless of your home environment too, because we did stand up a lot of public Wi-Fi, some other ways to get home access, and we try to do our best to help students out with that too. So we go beyond the walls of our district. Our focus most now is within the walls of our schools because we are in person, but we still have a mind for that home access outside of our schools and how do we use those tools appropriately. So tonight's going to be really a big summary. It's a lot of stuff. I'm going to cover some highlights of some things, but I want us as a system to understand the scope and breadth of what has happened over the last 3 years to get us where we are, and then hopefully assure us of the future steps we're going to take to maintain, to keep moving forward, to support the promise, but also fiscally support this, because it's not an endeavor that comes with a lot of money from the state or other agencies to support the tools we're trying to put in place. So I'll cover that as we talk about some of the federal money we leveraged, and then how are we going to support that moving forward. So these are some of the things our department supports. This is put safety security on the side, because that's another duty. We cover really everything electronic, from all of our network systems, telephone systems, clocks, bells, intercoms, all software, all devices, all the support services, help desk services, including parent support, staff support, and then adding on to that, we're trying to centralize and be better about purchasing, aligning purchasing to our standardization, planning, and then visioning for how to support all of what we do in technology to support learning and teaching, to support transportation, to support food services. We support all the other departments with their tools. So one of the most critical services that is expected to be ubiquitous and accessible all the time, 100% of the time, is our network. And we have a very, very robust Wi-Fi. We have a robust hardware side of our network. And I want to put faces behind some of this work. So we have 2 folks that maintain our network. We have a network administrator, Justin, and a network technician, Caleb, and they keep things running. They hook things up. They configure things. I would be lost without them. And they keep the world afloat, because all of us expect to open a device and have it work, have it be online, because most of what we do now is in the cloud. It's online, and we want that service to be fast, and we want it to be anytime, all the time. And that's a big ask. So between the last 3 years, what my goal was coming in, because I've had this role for about 3 years, is to get us 20-year ready. So over the last 3 years, with the use of some federal ESSER money, which you're familiar with, some emergency connectivity money from the feds, in addition to a E-rate program, which yearly you approve some contracts for us to get some federal reimbursements for E-rate to support network services. What we have tried to put in place, and we're really, really close, is about a 20-year lifespan of new hardware. We were woefully outdated before the pandemic, and we upgraded a lot of stuff to get us. And I think we're really ready to get to about 2032 before we have to think about, or even 2042 with some tools before we have to update those pieces of hardware. So we've given ourselves a long time to use what we have, because if you plan it right and you build it correctly and over spec it, it's going to last longer. And we don't want to buy the minimum and have it last a couple of years. We want to buy a really good equipment that's going to get us a long time. So these are some of the things we've done with the approval of some ESSER dollars. And I'll just highlight a couple of the big ones. Our Wi-Fi, we had to add a lot of Wi-Fi access points thinking about all these students coming back. So we've increased our Wi-Fi footprint across the district. It is pretty much border to border, wall to wall, go anywhere, you're going to get Wi-Fi in our district with a district device. That was a big endeavor and a big ask of our staff to wire and get that ready. Another piece that is not thought about too often is our power. And when we have a power outage, the network goes out, the Wi-Fi goes out, the phones go out, because the phones go over the network now. They're not on copper phone lines anymore. The security system goes out, the access control goes out, this meeting goes out. So what we've done is we've put in place interruptible power supplies to get us about an hour to 90 minutes of time in almost all locations to keep services running. In emergency circumstances, we very rarely have power outages that long. I can count on one hand in the last a lot of years where we've had a couple, maybe somebody ran into a transformer or a power pole or something like that. But we have very few power outages. Our PUD is fantastic. And so we will handle this small power outages now without losing any of those services. And those were a big investment. A lot of ESSER money went into those to get us able to handle the capacity of all these devices, but also handle the little power blips that happen once in a while that could take down the phones or an emergency system or our Wi-Fi. And when teachers now rely on every second of the day to be able to use something and teach with it, we don't want to interrupt that important service. So that was a big one. And then expanding and increasing our fiber network. So we went from a 1 gig backbone to a 10 gig, which means it just gives us extra capacity for the more traffic, more devices on there to handle more information. So that should get us out. Who knows what's going to happen, but I'm hopeful it gets us, pushed to 2040 in terms of a network upgrade path. And then we took a lot of work to clean up, document, and rebuild some of our existing infrastructure. So this is one of those examples is that little rack over there in the corner. We just consolidated a lot of our stuff that you don't see that's in closets. We did some labeling, rewiring, and just brought us up to current standards. And it took a lot of effort from our folks. Safety systems, which we talked about. So we have 3 folks that really handle safety. You heard from Tom last meeting. Ryan Horn does our telephone and Jeff does our fire security and access control. So faces behind the scenes that nobody ever sees unless they're here in some ceiling or something looking around. Over the last few years, with the help of the board and some capital projects money, along with some leftover bond money, we were able to pretty close to finish. We're a couple doors away from finishing our access control systems. So our doors are locked, they're secured, they have cameras to get in, and all that's controllable and manageable on the network. That was a very, very big task. Again, power supplies to support those. And then a lot of work on our IP-based, which is internet protocol-based intercoms, so that when we get fully converted, our buildings can have their bells, their intercoms, and all of those things programmable via their computer, able to send announcements, emergency notifications across those remotely from phones or from other devices, including our lockdown features of hitting a button. It locks the doors. It does an announcement, those integrations. So those were completed over the last couple of years. And then we don't think about the phones too much, but that's a big infrastructure, 5 or 6, 7, 800 phones we have. And all of that travels across the network. So maintaining that system. So we had a woefully outdated server we updated to make sure we can get a lot more years on our phone system. On the safety side, we do have some fire alarms that are needing to be replaced. We're looking toward replacing those. We replaced Orchards last year. Unfortunately, those things just have a lifetime. You know, the sensors, the panels, over time, they die. We have a Wenatchee High School one we replaced several years ago, but it's going to get us until we can hopefully run a bond someday and replace that facility. And then Mission View and Pioneer are kind of on that edge of needing to get replaced. So that's a piece of some future planning. A lot of work on our cameras, making sure we have camera systems in place. We've added, I want to say 150 plus cameras over the last 3 years. So we have adequate coverage so that administration can look around and investigate and or just keep our building safe. And then one of the cost saving measures we went to this year, actually, it'll be about a year of return on that investment. We switched a lot of our landline copper lines that cost kind of like used to have in our house, you know, $35-40 a month for a landline times, I think we had a lot. And we are trying to decrease those. And we went to cellular receivers, which are a little more reliable. Nothing's going to get dug up. Nothing's going to get hit. Cable's not going to get broken. So we're converted all of our burglar, fire, et cetera, over to cellular signal, which saved us quite a bit of money on a monthly basis on those phone line costs. So we won't see those savings for another year or so, but that was a big project we're still in the middle of. Kind of beyond 23, some of the things we're looking to do, continue to replace our aging systems. Look at our access control. Where else do we need that? We always get the question, why can't we put it on every door? An example, the high school alone has 171 doors, exterior facing. It's hard to believe they have that many doors, but that's a lot of hardware at, you know, almost $2,000 a pop to put that on those doors. So we do the most critical entrances that are most effective for our access and safety. But we'll continue to look at those as those requests come up. We want to move our phone system to the cloud in 25 because it's getting to the point now of we need some better services for our phone system. So we're a couple of years away from that. Updating our clock and bells over time, which we have a lot of the hardware already purchased and ready. It's just the manpower to get it installed. And then continue the collaboration with Tom and safety security to make sure our hardware hardening aligns with our programs and our management of all of those systems. And then lastly, some of the things that's been in the news lately. Edmonds had an incident recently. We have done a lot of improvements behind the scenes around our cybersecurity, our response to cybersecurity, our response to attacks that could come. And there's some things coming that are going to affect people. We're adding some more stringent ways of logging into things and authenticating with systems. And that will increase over time as we protect ourselves from phishing and ransomware and other kind of attacks. So you will see our stance getting a little more stringent with that. There's been an uptick. K-12 is the most targeted cyber environment right now. So when you look at the attackers around the globe, K-12 education is the top hit. And so I'm working with the Homeland Security and an agency called CISA to assess our own systems and processes, but then building a plan for how do we react, how do we respond, how do we deter, and then what things can we put in place to keep ourselves safe. That's going to be an ongoing project. It's going to take a bit. We're in a pretty good place, and we have some things behind the scenes that I don't really want to say we have. So we've protected ourselves fairly well and hardened our systems, but we have more to do on the people side, teaching people how not to have passwords on sticky notes on their keyboards, things like that. So we have some people things to work on, and we're going to work on that over time and get our systems more secure.
Ron, is there a plan to incorporate the multi-factor authentication system?
Yes. So it's voluntary currently.
Okay.
We're going through, I guess we're taking those ready to benefit currently. We're forcing some that have access to critical data. And then we're voluntarily bringing people along as we can. And that will be enforced by the end of September of this year. So that'll really, the big launch for that will be in the fall to force that.
Is there plans to roll that out to parents?
There's the only system parents get into would be Skyward Family Access, and the current edition of Skyward doesn't allow two-factor authentication. So we're going to probably increase our password length, password complexity, which will help with that. But our current path is for staff first, and then we might hit students in another year because that'll be a bigger impact on students and the way they log into things. So it's really thinking about what are those critical pieces of data we wouldn't want shared, we wouldn't want accessed, and we don't want to have held ransom or get hacked. And that's who we're going to hit first with forcing that.
I just, MFA is a little bit complicated, especially for our not so tech savvy community.
Yes.
And once you put it out into general public, it becomes a little bit more challenging.
Yes. So we're trying to hit all of those folks who might be the champions that can help their neighbor, that can help their neighbor, that can help their PLC team, that can help their building. So we're trying to do that and trickle that out this spring and get a lot of folks that are a little more comfortable with it, get that in place, and then they can help their buddies next door who might be a little more apprehensive about multi-factor authentication. But Google handles it there's a pretty straightforward way. We're going to embrace something called an authenticator. So it's that way you don't have to have school data on your personal device. It's just used to get a code. And so that's the most secure way in terms of not having shared data between your devices. So that's the methodology we're going to use as an authenticator. We'll be doing it Google first, and then our Microsoft services will come after that. And that takes care of probably 95% of the stuff we access.
Do we back up our system
Absolutely.
in case we get ransom?
Yeah, not only we back it up locally, we back it up to separate sites locally, but then we also push all of those into the cloud offsite. So we have a pretty robust plan for recovery, and we've tested those recovery services over the last 6 months even to make sure we can bring things back if something were to get attacked. Yep.
And hostage?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I don't want to say a whole lot more than we have things in place to protect us from any currently known ransom or ransomware or anything like that could happen. On the audio video side, this is Noel. He's behind our audio video, everything to do with anything AV in the district. We put in with a accessibility grant through OSPI, classroom audio in every single classroom across the district. So every single room has a system where the teacher has a microphone, they can talk, they can be heard clearly. And we also upgraded a lot of projectors. And then a theme through all of the things we're upgrading and putting in, trying to get them on the network and online so they're manageable with less people. Because when you have 700 plus projectors, monitoring them, bulb life, what replacements they are, what models they are, doing that one at a time per room is very difficult. So trying to get those on the network so we can have behind a screen, we can see them all, we can see their lifetime, we can plan for refresh, we can plan for bulb purchases, things like that. So that's one of the themes across all of our kind of today and beyond, is to get us upgraded with those management systems, but also keep converting our tools from an older analog or an older style technology into IP based. So get them on the network, which adds to the cybersecurity need, but also it helps us be more efficient because, as you know, we've had to decrease some staffing, and we'll continue to be doing that to align with our enrollment. So that's going to affect every department, including ours. So we need to be able to support as much with less. And the only way to do that is to consolidate systems, make them more manageable, and then cross-train so that we can support more with less people over time. So some of the big things, and we don't think about these, the little plates on the wall where we plug in our stuff to go to the projector, all those were analog. So we are switching all those to HDMI because HDMI is a newer technology. You can't buy analog stuff anymore. So it's just those little things we don't think about sometimes. And we're just slowly converting those pieces over and getting us ready for the next 15 to 20. Repair and surplus. We have one guy, Mr. Stewart. He does all our repairs in our surplus. And it has been a task for the last 3 years, what he has done. I don't think I have an exact number, but I want to give you an idea on repair. I want to give kudos to our families, our students, and our parents. From a technician's perspective, we only see things when they come in broken. So we think things are always broken, but we have about a 6% breakage rate, which is really good across the system. But when you have 10,000 devices because of teachers and kids and multiple types, that's a lot of fix, but it's percentage-wise very low. And I want to give credit to our staff and our parents and our kids predominantly taking care of their stuff and doing what's right with their equipment, saving us money, contributing to the insurance or assurance programs, pays for our repairs. But also one of the processes I brought in, we used to e-cycle, recycle, donate. That was our surplus. We surplused, you guys approved it or the board approved it, and it would go to an e-cycler. It would go to donations. It would just kind of leave. So we put in place reselling it, getting it to vendors who might buy it. And we've created a revenue stream of reselling through our own surplus sales, but also just our old network gear, which if we had a surplus sale, no one's going to buy it because it's boxes of things that look like that they don't know what it is. But there's resellers online, they'll give us a little bit for it. And we'll be able to recoup that and be able to invest that into our systems and our management and our repair tools. So that's gone really well. And Craig's been instrumental in carrying that out. And then little things we don't think about, we have one type of Chromebook we buy, one manufacturer. That makes the repair easier, makes the repair faster. If we have a broken device, we can use the screen from it to fix a different one. So it's a very efficient way. I don't think we've bought a screen for a Chromebook almost all year because we have Chromebooks that might have broken in other ways. The screen's still good. We take it out of the device that's broken, use it in the one that might have a broken screen. And so we've become more efficient because we have a standardization. And that's why we have centralized purchasing and we want standardization on what we buy. Because we always get asked, why can't I buy this? Because it doesn't match what we support, what we fix, what we can work on efficiently. So just continuing that process, reselling, trade in, auctioning things if we can, and then trying to recycle, e-cycle our broken stuff only. So if it's unusable, that's the only time we get rid of it in that way. And then software services, these are the three behind that. Janet does all of our Skyward work. Adam does everything to do with all of our software accounts, iReady, Lexia. You've heard those softwares mentioned, putting kids in those, teachers in those. And then Lori does all our websites and documents and forms, maintains those things. We converted to the new website. We're converting a lot of our paper forms to electronic so that we can be more efficient. And then currently working on bringing over what's called ClassLink, which is, we used to use a product called Clever. And this is a tool that allows a quick way to roster students into curricular software, but also build their accounts so we can automate that piece. The only thing really on here to keep an eye on is in about the 25-26 school year, we will be converting somewhere around there to what's called cumulative. It's a new version of Skyward. Skyward's our student information system, that's going to be a big lift. That is taking all of our current data, all our grade books, all our everything and reporting and moving it into a new system. That's going to be a big support piece, and that'll be a huge lift for that year to get that done. Yep.
Are we still using Canvas?
Yes, still using Canvas. We paid for a contract through 26 with ESSER dollars. So we have a solid foundation there. And then where it gets crazy is these guys, Travis and Andy, maintain all our service and our devices. So we added, like I said, around 3,000 devices through the pandemic funding, upgraded lots of things, upgraded laptops, because old laptops wouldn't run Zoom in the right way and wouldn't run the cameras. And there was a lot of barriers as we went to remote, as you all probably experienced yourselves. So we had to do a lot of work and continue to just support that work. And behind the scenes, when you're trying to update an application on 7,000 things, there's a lot that goes into that. We want it just to be there and work when we click on it. And so these folks get it to that point, so they don't have to think about it. Over time, over the next couple of years, just continue making that more efficient, creating documentation, redundancies to provide disaster recovery, but also cross-training our staff so that anybody can take over if someone's gone. I always like to say, if somebody wins the lottery, the next person can step in and take over and not lose ground. So my goal over the next 3 years is really build a system where someone else could come in and understand everything, know where it's at, know where it's documented, and know what we're trying to accomplish and get to. And then lastly, but probably the most important piece, I shouldn't say most important, it's the most visible piece by the people in the field, is our support staff. So we have an instructional support, we have help desk, where if you call or email or chat or text, you're going to get one of these two ladies, Autumn or Holly, sitting behind the phone helping. And then our buildings, they all split between certain sites. So this is the face of the support. If you don't know how to do something, these are the folks you go to. Liz and Tim, Tina, Peyton, Adam, Ryan, Sam, Stefano, Curtis, John, and Noah. Couple of them were prior apprentices, which is awesome because we got to hire them. Really good crew. So these are the people that know how to help you with a smile, regardless of if you're having difficulty. So those are the people leading us through MFA and getting everybody using their authenticator in Google. And then I include the apprentices. We have 3 currently. We just hired Karen. These are high school students who are in a L&I approved apprentice program for 2,000 hours and are employed by the district. And they're learning from those journey technicians and getting their credentials. By the end of their high school time, they'll have those 2,000 hours and hopefully graduate out of that apprenticeship, which gives them a leg up to get out there and get in the field, which is awesome. And there was a lot of things happening over the last 3 years. All our remote support, that was these folks, parents, student support, staff support, every little question that comes up in a building, those are the folks who deal with it. They deployed, checked out, unwired, rewired, got things ready, and then continue to do that over time. So they are the face of support, because all the first people you don't really see. They do work behind the scenes. These are the ones out in front. And then continuing just to get better, get more efficient, trying to decrease burden on our clientele, our students, parents, and staff members, try to make systems as efficient as we can, work as best as we can. And we're moving potentially toward a model where we centralize their support rather than having them based in buildings, as we potentially decrease over time, moving to a model of a request comes in and they're deployed out to help, and then they return back to a central location. So depends on what staffing does over the next couple of years, but that's the reality of where we're at. We have to be functional with less people over time, and that's our responsibility to carry that out. And then my job is really planning, budgeting, within the constraints that we have, figuring out a way to maintain, refresh, keep it alive, keep it secure, leverage the grant funding, leverage federal funding where we can, and then, maintain that inventory for efficiency across the next few years. So that's how we support the promise. It's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. And we're just grateful. We've had board support over the years. We've had financial support over the years. We've had family support over the years to support what we're trying to do. And we will just continue down those roads of trying to do what's best for learning and teaching and get kids on a path for a future ready graduation. So any additional questions besides what Maria had already asked about cybersecurity or anything else?
No question. Well, yeah, one quick
Yeah.
question. Our apprentices, are those paid positions?
Those are, we interview like any other job. And then the framework or the standards from L&I, the approved framework we use it starts at 80% of our base.
Hmm.
And then they move up over the course. I think they max out at 85% of our base salary.
It's
So
really,
it's
really-
awesome.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
It's-
Kind of the growing our own concept. I do appreciate
Yeah.
seeing all the faces of the team, and it's even bigger than I thought. I can remember sitting in on meetings in the early days.
Yep.
And we've come a long way, baby.
We have.
Yeah. So COVID was a unfortunate opportunity for
Yes.
us, and I'm glad to see all the work that you've done putting this together.
I think we took advantage of it. It was unfortunate, obviously, but it was an opportunity
Thank
for
you.
the tech world. Absolutely. I will give a kudos to CTE. You bring up hiring the apprentices. It's a bright spot. CTE does fund that program because it's a career pathway. These students are on that pathway to graduate with the intent of becoming tech support personnel in their future. So they should be able to graduate and be on the ground and employable day one after graduation or after they finish the program, which we've already employed 2 of them. So I can imagine hopefully over time we can continue to do that. It's been a blessing. It's a lot easier to onboard somebody you've had for 2,000 hours in your system when you hire them, for sure. So thank you very much for the opportunity to give you some updates. And if you have any further questions, you know where I'm at, and you can email me, Martin.
Yeah, I have a comment and then one question.
Sure.
The comment really is thank you very much for a very thorough and detailed summary.
Since I can't be
Very-
over there, I apologize. Can you get a little bit closer? I can't hear you through the mic because I have a feeling maybe online they can't hear you very well.
Okay, let me just get closer.
There you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
go.
And I can't be over there to
No,
turn
that's
it up.
fine. That's fine. I'll do it from here and lean into it.
Yeah.
No, first of all, thank you for a very thorough and comprehensive approach. And you described grabbing the investment and capital opportunity of ESSER
Mhm.
to bring the whole system up to speed. And that's really, really great. If I remember rightly, prior to that, our sort of mid-small device, we'll call them small devices, tablets, basically, we were unable to recycle them at an appropriate life cycle. And you talk about part of your responsibility being looking ahead in the
Mhm.
budget, and 4 years is not 7 years.
Yes.
I'm asking you right now, how do you rate our ability to be able to keep pace with that renovation on those kind of people-heavy devices?
I don't want to sugarcoat it. Sean and I have done a lot of conversations and work around this. The good thing is that 5 years ago, the devices were very different. They didn't last as long from a standpoint of their systems, their chips, running things we want to run. So we've extended our refresh, meaning a laptop we buy today, we're going to try to get 7-8 years out of that, where 10 years ago, we were trying to get 3 or 4 and struggling to get 5 because the chips have gone so far, the memory's gone so far. They're extremely capable nowadays. So the devices we're buying are going to last longer. We made sure in ESSER with that funding we didn't buy it at the bleeding edge. So we tried to buy things at a little bit farther along in their development. So for instance, our Chromebook fleet, It doesn't expire, which means we can't update the systems anymore until 2029. So as long as we can keep them working and keep them in shape and keep them not broken, which is just a continual cycle, we have a lot of years to work on that. And you've already approved some of these leases. We want to move toward a more predictable cycle of refresh so that we can buy a large number of these, lease them, and most companies offer 0% or close to 0% leases where you own them at the end of the process, or you maybe even give them back, but it gives you a predictable payment. And you can buy a lot of devices up front on a lease and then pay for them over 4, 5, 6, 7 years before you release another batch. So that's what we're trying to plan out. And it's not a perfect plan right now. And we're trying to eke a little more life out of everything with the ever shrinking with the budget and the enrollment. But I think we're in a pretty good place. I don't want to kick the can down the road to 27 either and just have everybody faced with all these devices that have to be updated. So we're going to be investing in smaller chunks over the next few years to try to get us devices that are last till 2032 and then till 2035 and then till 2039 or whatever that is. So it's not a perfect system. And I'm hopeful the feds in the state, not that it'll happen, but I'm hoping they have exacerbated the problem for a lot of districts, not just Wenatchee. When that hit and everybody went 1-to-1, every district in the country is asking the same question you just asked. You gave us an immense amount of money to buy devices all at once. And now you're expecting us to spend local dollars to figure out how to keep that going. So I'm predicting over time, there's going to be a little kick in somewhere. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I think between those two things, I'm pretty optimistic we're going to be fine.
Thanks. There's a lot of good thinking in those answers.
Okay. I took more time than I was supposed to, and Sean can go less then. All right. Thank you.
Ron, I just want to say before you leave the podium, number one, thank you. And this is an example of something that we talked about early on in the year when we dealt with the idea of being good stewards of our resources in light of some budget considerations. This is a great example of increasing efficiencies throughout our system and thinking ahead to build sustainable resources moving forward. So thank you for that work.
You bet. Happy to help.
And we do have our Chief Financial Officer here to give an update on enrollment and some updated information around legislative work that's gone on that will have implications for our budget process. So welcome to Sean Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Oh, okay. All right. Thank you very much, President Iniguez, members of the board, Superintendent Eagle. It's great to be here tonight, presenting on the preliminary enrollment projections for 2023-24 school year and a brief legislative update. Next slide, please. All right. So our enrollment funding overview for 2022-23, just some background. Budgeted FTE drives state apportionment funding from September through December. And our year-to-date average or annual average FTE, also known AAFTE, drives state apportionment funding beginning in January. Currently, the 2022-23 budgeted FTE is 6,847 students. And this amount includes only our K-12 BEA students only. So it excludes Running Start and Open Doors. For the month of April, we have a current FTE of 6,880, where our average annual FTE is 6,910. So district enrollment is up 33 FTE compared to budget. However, we're down 57 FTE from last year. Next slide, please. Here we have our chart of our multi-year comparison, starting back in 2015-16, where our enrollment for the district peaked. With the Alcoa plant closure in 2015, we began to see a decline in our enrollment beginning in 2016-17 school year, and another significant drop in 2020-21 during the COVID pandemic lockdowns. Next slide, please. Here again is the chart format just with the numbers, and we can see again both in 2016 and 17 related to the Alcoa plant closure. 2020-21, we have the COVID pandemic lockdowns, and currently 2022-23 in comparison to prior year, we're seeing roughly a 75 student drop, or about 1.1%. Again, some of the contributing factors, as already mentioned, Alcoa and COVID pandemics, but we're also seeing student enrollment decline due to increasing property values, alternative education options, and also paying attention to our county birth rates. We've seen a steady decline since 2015, but they are now stabilizing. So it'll be interesting to see how the trends will continue in the next few years, and seeing how that correlation between our incoming kindergarten classes and our county birth rates. Also, we have our cohort analysis, and just looking at our graduating classes appear to be larger than our incoming kindergarten classes, which also contributes to the decline. Ultimately, we're looking at for 2023-24 is expected to be 6,820. So we're estimating a decline of about 90 students or 1.3%. Again, these projections are preliminary and will be updated as more data becomes available, especially when we start getting actual enrollment data. And this will be updated accordingly throughout the budget process. I will say this is also a conservative estimate since, enrollment is our primary driver for revenue. So we kind of want to be, we may not see a decline in 90, but we like to plan and budget for that just in case, because by budgeting a little bit conservative, we don't actually lose the actual money. So once the actual enrollment comes in, we actually get what we have based on our enrollment. But this allows us to plan, just be a little bit more careful when we're considering staffing or other budgeting costs, and then adjust accordingly as the actual revenue comes in. Before I move on to the legislative update, does anyone have any questions concerning enrollment?
I guess I have one observation that I hadn't noticed before. If you compare the incoming kindergarten, the last 2 years, we're back to about 490 with the drop off for the COVID year. And then we were running around 470. So when you look at that curve of yours and you try to put a regression line on it, I don't think we can know, unless you've got a comment, that we do suddenly have a couple of years of a slightly stronger kindergarten, first grade level than 2 to 4 years ahead of that.
So when we're kind of looking at incoming kindergarten classes beyond what we're seeing from actual enrollment, when we're trending the data with kind of a correlation between county birth rates and incoming kindergarten classes, we'll take the birth year and add 5 years. And so when we're looking at our county birth rates, we are seeing a steady decline, but our kindergarten class for this last year has been strong. And this preliminary enrollment is just, again, our expectation is that it'll probably be, maybe at the same level, but we do want to be on the conservative side just in case. The one silver lining is if we're looking at our county birth rates in 2019, so if we add 5 years, it might be in our incoming 2024 class, we do see a dramatic spike in the birth rate before we see another decline. So we do see maybe perhaps some stronger enrollment because of this, but the overall trends make me tend to hang on the conservative side.
So, yeah, quick comment. So I have always appreciated the conservative financial forecasting that our district has typically done. It's always served us very well in the past, and you seem pretty expert in that regard. So I'm very happy to see that. I think one thing we need to keep an eye on is emerging in Malaga. is going to be the Microsoft campus. You know, we know that data centers have not in the past typically employed a large number of people, but they often bring construction work for a couple of years and then contractors. So I'm hopeful that we'll see improvement in this. And I predicted a COVID baby boom, and maybe the numbers you're speaking of are evidence of that.
All right, moving on to the legislative update. So there are a number of key things just wanted to briefly address tonight. So legislature is on track and did pass the state budget this week. So as of Sunday, all three state budgets have passed. And now the budget details are emerging and more details will come out in the next week or two. Some of the outstanding issues, special education. So we are going to see an increase in special education funding. Some of the main points is they're raising the special education funding cap from 13.5% to 15%. And basically that cap is based on your special education enrollment from your ages 5 through 21 divided by your total district enrollment. So if you exceed the 13.5% cap, then the district would have to look to alternative funding sources to make up the difference. So the state will actually fund you less. Currently, as of April, we're standing at 13.76%. So we're just over the limit. So raising the cap would greatly benefit us, especially as we see kind of continuing enrollment trends increasing in our special education department. So this is very welcome. Another funding addition will be related just to special education students in general. There is a multi-tiered funding factor in regards to our special education students, depending whether they're primarily in a special education setting or a general education setting. Special education students will receive more funding if they spend greater than 80% of their classroom time in a general education setting. But both, regardless of their setting, will see a funding increase in both areas. There will also be increased opportunities for safety net costs. So all of these are good news for the district. Transportation, there was a lot of discussion regarding the overhauling the methodology of our transportation funding. Special education, transportation, and food services are probably some of our largest budget areas, but also statewide for any district. Most people consider these not adequately funded by the state. And so this was another discussion about whether transportation needed to be overhauled and funding increased. There was no overhaul this year, so methodology remains the same. The only change is related to what they're classifying as special passengers. So they're kind of implementing a transportation safety net. And these special passengers will be classified as special education students, McKinney-Vento, foster students. So if a district is, having a lot of these students and costs are exceeding what they're receiving from the state, then a district can submit for extra funding. We've worked with our transportation director and the ESD to see if we've qualified for any of the safety net. And so far, that doesn't seem to be, that funding would be available or qualify for us at this time. Regionalization and rebase. So regionalization relates to districts receiving extra funding, depending on what district you're at in relation to property values. So kind of the purpose of it is to provide extra funding to teachers in places where there's high property values so that they have incentive to stay. There's been a lot of discussion for many years on how this funding factor works, because despite Wenatchee having increasing property values, we have for the last several years been losing our regionalization funding. And so currently we're at 3% of extra funding. And the big discussion this year was this was going away. So right now for next year, it'll be reduced down from 3% to 1.5%. And then for the following year, we're not expecting to see any sort of extra regionalization funding from this. Learning assistance program in ESSER. Again, there was some discussion about funding statewide lab programs through ESSER. It does not appear that this came to anything. Last but not least, we have our transition to kindergarten program. So this was another big topic during the legislative session. Right now, as statewide, we have a transitional or TK, transitional kindergarten program, which also Wenatchee School District has. With the passage of this bill, the TK program will transition to this TTK program. There was a lot of back and forth, many bills on this, and we're kind of left with, we know there's going to be a new program, but a lot of the rulemaking authority has been delegated to OSPI to help flesh it out. So right now we're kind of waiting to see as more details emerge from, we can get more detail from OSPI in the next couple of weeks about what this is going to look like and how, what's eligibility and what's funding. But this thing has gone through many iterations during the legislative session. And now we're just kind of more in a waiting pattern to get more detail on it. Any questions on a legislative update?
I don't have, I would like to go back on the enrollment projection. Do we know what the outcome was for WIA enrolled students, whether they're choosing to stay or leave? And are those, based on those projections, are they included in this enrollment count?
So from my own perspective, just on the WIA would be, I'm unsure about the final WIA numbers or where that's being headed, but I did, just based on our kind of trajectory for ALE, I'm just looking at about a 10 to 15 FTE decline in FTE. That's what I'm currently projecting across all ALE programs. I know Superintendent Eagle, do you have anything to add related to WIA?
Dr. Callahar and some of his staff have reached out to parents about enrollment in the combo program at Valley Academy, and we're still in the process of getting people enrolled at Valley in general. So I don't have a final number on that at this time. Do you have anything to add to that, Dr.?
My friend told me to use the mic. The majority of students from WIA have chosen to go to Valley Academy. So I think the number was roughly 40 out of the students that we had called. The other students, some of them chose to go back to a brick and mortar school. But that was the majority of the group. Not hard numbers off the top of my head, but overwhelmingly students are looking for a Wenatchee School District operated online option, and we have that for them. So that was good news.
I appreciate that. And in the future, if we could have a firm update on the WIA numbers, that would be really great.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. That was some good news and some maybe medium news from the legislature. So we'll see where the TTK funding ends up. But great news on the regionalization. We're going to recover some of that. It won't be completely gone. And great news on the increase in the cap and increased funding for special education, including safety net, which is something that we access here. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next on the agenda, we have action item. And again, I'll pass it over to Bill.
Thank you. This action item relates to an update to our 23-24 student calendar that reflects some things we learned about calendar this year. We have worked with our union leadership on some proposed changes for a movement of one of our training days back into August, which keeps that out of the middle of the school year. It's a better time in terms of staff returning to get some of the trainings in. in August. And so we've moved that day from middle of the school year to what will be the beginning of the school year for next year. In addition, we've added a non-contract day in January for secondary schools. Traditionally, they had a day between semesters. It's very difficult to end one semester and the very next day start another semester. So this puts a day back that they had as kind of a leeway in the past to get ready for the new semester. And those two changes are reflected in the update to the calendar.
Okay, I have one question. It's just an editing issue on the actual calendar itself. If you look to August of 2023, the dates written say 21, 22, and 23 are principal days through district days, but the highlighted days in the calendar are 22 through 24. So just making sure those are consistent. It's just an edit thing.
We can make that change.
Any further questions or comments? Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to move forward the updated student calendar for the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Thank you, Laura. Second. And I got a second from Julie. Any further discussion, comments? All in favor of approving the updated student calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Next, we have the superintendent report.
Thank you. I've got some great news to share. Brian Brocky, who is our Director of Maintenance and Operations, is the 2023 Cindy Acosta Award recipient, and that is for outstanding risk management. The WASBO organization, which is the Washington Association of School Business Officials, created this award to recognize the contribution of an outstanding risk manager in the WASBO region. And the award is named in memory of Cindy Acosta, who was a risk manager from the Sumner School District that passed away in 2006. The North Central Educational Service District loss control specialist, Paul Harrison, who is someone that I've worked with quite a bit over the last 5 years, is the person who nominated Brian for this award. And he shared that I nominated Brian because of his continuous support and efforts to make Wenatchee schools a safe and inviting place for employees to work and students to learn. Brian will be recognized at the WASBO annual conference in May, and we're excited for Brian and happy that he is being recognized for this award. So kudos to Brian and his department. Also wanted to mention, and you may have heard on the radio today, that Wenatchee High School FFA plant sale is coming up May 3rd through 5th. It is a highly anticipated event in this region. May 3rd through 5th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The WHS Horticulture Program will be selling the plants. They've worked hard to grow a variety of high quality plants and vegetables for this event, including the popular Panther baskets, which I might add are just in time for Mother's Day. And the plant sale is considered one of the career and technical education school-based enterprises, which means the horticultural students who work on the sale learn how to run a business and share in the profits. So hope the community and board will consider stopping into the plant sale in May. Also on May 3rd, we do have our next Migrant Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee meeting. So PAC meeting on May 3rd. That will be from 5 to 7 p.m. at Wenatchee High School. We will have information regarding our mathematics program, which I'm always excited about, and information about continuing education opportunities after high school, as well as some great entertainment lined up for the evening. The Parque Padrinos folkloric dancers will be there, and Columbia Elementary Choir. So invite the community and the board to attend that event. And last week, our 5th grade students from across the district participated in another excellent science field experience on site at Saddle Rock. We've done this for a number of years. We had students that were hiking the hillside at Saddle Rock. while they learned about our local environment, our local wildlife, and enjoyed the outdoors. And we're happy to bring those types of experiences to our students. Also wanted to mention that on May 2nd, we will have an early childhood education options fair. That will be from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and we'll be hosting that fair at the Castle Rock Early Learning Center next to Washington Elementary. It's an event for families with children from birth to 5 years old, and they're invited to discover our community's early childhood education options all in one place. So it's an opportunity for families to visit with local early childhood ed providers, and we'll have information on programs and enrollment and eligibility at that event. And I will finish today this report with, I had an opportunity to present at the Sunrise Rotary this morning on our strategic plan, and it's one of several opportunities I've had over the last month to be out in the community talking with groups about our strategic plan. And there's always excitement around our strategic plan and the Big Six, and those things are well received in the community. And it's wonderful to have opportunities to be out there ensuring that our community knows about our strategic plan. They know kind of the steps we're taking to move that forward, that it's a 5-year plan. And again, those opportunities are well received. I look forward to continuing that in the time that I have left in the district. And that is my report.
Thank you. Do we have any board communication? No. Julie? No. Martin?
Yes, I do. On Friday, I was a last-minute substitute chaperone for the AVID field trip to the University of Washington. And this gives me an opportunity that I really like to repeat my admiration for the AVID program and recommend to all parents and upcoming students that you put serious thought in taking advantage of AVID. It stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. My observation, and that includes watching the students on Friday, is that AVID students combine being adventurous and disciplined, along with a lot of other things. But that adventurous and disciplined really makes them formidable in their personal character development and what they become capable of achieving. And on this trip, everybody went out and did stuff and fearlessly, and nobody was ever late the whole day. So that was pretty good. So I also want to thank the excellent and dedicated faculty of the district's AVID program for their contribution. It's incredibly invaluable and impressive. I want to go long on something else because I think this will prove to be a case study in teamwork in an area that's of interest to me. So I'm piggybacking on Superintendent Eagle talking about the family night for migrant cultural activities on the 3rd of May. There'll be opportunity booths there that are going to be hosted by community organizations. And from the district, you'll have desks with the family advocates and school representatives. CORPAC is the board for Wenatchee's Parent Advisory Council for Migrant and Bilingual Education. And last week, I sat in on their most recent meeting. And part of their business agenda was to decide on the topics for this family meeting, including the discussion on mathematics, which has already been mentioned, and that's really great. The members of the CORPAC are important people, and their contribution, and I'm going to slay this slowly, to showing parents and students from that community how to get inside the knowledge system to find, get access to, and benefit from the K-12 educational opportunities. This is absolutely vital from an equity point of view. CORPAC recently added 2 student members, and they immediately contributed formidable insights and momentum. And I'm going to put out a few names because I think people deserve it. And I want to thank Gabriela Pedraza and Lourdes Guerrero. They were the 2 students. CORPAC's task is not easy. And to be frank, the status they're in is a renewal starting phase. But I do also wish to pay tribute to the impressive growth in power and effectiveness from the efforts of that team. President Maria Vergara, Sergeant at Arms Maria Castro, Vice President Maricela Peña. They receive and do depend a lot on valuable support from our Director of Hispanic and Latino Relations, Alfonso Lopez, and Teresa Godina, who, in addition to her district work, is a member of the Washington State Advisory Committee on Migrant Education. So we've got some horsepower going into this area. As I said, this is really, really important equity work. And I am talking at length to make it prominent and give a highlight to it. The NCSD also knows this. Recently, family and student engagement specialist Gabby Fernandez has been providing training to this group. And from the Superintendent of Public Instruction's Migrant Education Program, Supervisor Lupe Ledesma was present at the two most recent Core Pack meetings while she was in Wenatchee providing technical support. So this is something we don't see a lot of. It's a big hill to climb, but they're really, really good people doing excellent work. And I think Family Night's going to be exciting.
Well, I can never follow Martin's game. He always plans far in advance and I usually don't. So I just wanted to say that I really appreciate the early learning focus that our district has been moving towards. This has been an important issue for me and an important issue for our students for a number of years. So I'm happy to see that there will be that opportunity for parents to find out about those activities. And on that note, we had a data workshop recently, and afterwards I was reflecting on some of the pieces that I would have maybe liked to have heard about. And one of those is the impact of the TK program on kindergarten readiness. We know that in the past, in some of our kindergarten classrooms, only 26% of the students have been deemed ready for kindergarten when they arrive. And I'm hopeful that the TK program is making a difference in the number of students able to be served by early learning programs, as well as their readiness to learn in kindergarten. And the other area that I wished we would have heard about and hope we hear about in the near future is the Science of Reading program. We had a big splash about that in the Seattle paper when we implemented it, and we all have high hopes for what it will help our students do in terms of reading achievement. So if we could have some data information on those two topics in the near future, that would be really great.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Martin. For my communication I want to say thank you to the athletics department for incorporating the parents' voice into choosing the next basketball coaches. That is tonight, I believe. And so I know there was a big effort to get the communication out to get parents to attend that meeting tonight. I'm glad Martin got to go on the field trip because I felt bad for Mr. Ochoa, who could not attend due to a sub shortage. So I got another email today asking for a chaperone for tomorrow if you're interested.
Warn you, it's 14 hours.
Julie and I will be participating in interviews tomorrow, so I had to kindly decline. But let me know if you're interested. That's it for me. Any other further board communication? If not, our next regular board meeting is scheduled for May 9th. If we have no further business, the meeting is adjourned.